Lawrence Virgil as well as Alden Darby. So those guys were designated with the waive injury designation by the New Orleans Saints. Right now, the Saints have really been doing pretty well at the safety level. All of the safeties have been doing very well. But BB, you brought up a very good point about Bell. He's really have been making an impact out there. You know, I've heard of his interceptions, but what concerns me, I haven't heard of any interceptions by Jairus Byrd.
First of all, I think we should just be happy that Jairus Byrd is healthy and able to participate in training camp. It's a little disappointing. Obviously, there was a lot of rumors coming in, especially after Bell got drafted, that Bell was there to compete with Byrd, and Byrd wasn't the guaranteed free safety this season. Now, that's interesting just because the money that Jairus Byrd is due, he's due $22 million. He has $22 million in guaranteed money over that huge deal that we gave him a few years ago. I think we need to be optimistic that Jairus Byrd is healthy. This is the first full off season that he has to really get in the routine. You brought up the play calling and coming in off the sideline and it being a little simpler than Rob Ryan's defense. And a couple players have alluded to that. They said Dennis has really made the play calls themselves shorter. So coming in off the field onto the field in defensive substitutions and rotations, it's easier to communicate amongst all 11 guys what the play call is, opposed to going, okay, let me make sure I have the right play call. Let me make sure I can communicate it and then read what the offense is doing. So I think it's very beneficial that Dennis Allen is making these play calls shorter for the team. On the back end, it's going to be interesting. You know, you have Byrd, you have Vaccaro, you have Bell, and remember, we brought back Roman Harper. So we had, the last time we did the show, we had a caller talk about the possibility of the Saints using three different safeties and going back to some of those three safety sets from Vaccaro's rookie season in 13, where we saw Vaccaro and Harper, along with Malcolm Jenkins, I believe. So you have that group. You bring Harper back, you have Vaccaro, you have Byrd, and then you have the versatility of Bell, who can play both safety positions. So more than anything, I'm curious to see, especially when the preseason gets here in a little bit, how they want to play all the talent they have on the back end. People forget, even though the Saints gave up, I think it was 46 touchdowns last season through the air, that they do have a very talented secondary. It's just, can they all be out and healthy at the same time?
Right. And I want to piggyback on what you said as far as Bell is concerned. They've been playing him in the nickel situation a lot. And I think that's where we're going to possibly see him kind of succeed and kind of get his feet wet in the NFL, especially the first couple of games. The next thing that we really need to look at is if Byrd is not going to perform, and all this is hypothetical, of course, fans, if Byrd was not going to perform at the level Sean Payton needs him to perform at, will we be able to transition to Bell, or will we transition to Harper or one of these other guys? So the Saints are in a good position at the safety position, in my opinion, Professor, because they have these different options that will be posed to them. Now, the defensive backs, with Keenan not being at 100%, it's an ideal situation for Damian Swan as well as P.J. Williams to be able to really show out and make a name for themselves.
Absolutely. In terms of, you bring up a very good question. I have always stated this. Just me, fans. Coach Payton needs to put on the best 22 players starting on offense and defense. In the past, he's made mistakes such as Tyron Walker trying to make the Akeem Hicks project work, and Tyron Walker was the better player, and they let Tyron Walker slip up out of here. And Tyron Walker was the one always making plays. The few times that he would get in the game to play, I think back to that San Francisco game, where he made a key play in 2014 with a fumble, and the Saints could have won that game and really save their season. So in a situation with Von Bell and Jairus Byrd, if Jairus Byrd is not performing, I know he's making $9 million or whatever, you're going to have to play the best players because with the time that we have with Drew, every game counts now. We cannot have the Saints, which have lost 40 games by a touchdown or less over the last 5 to 6 years, continue this trend where they lose so many close games. Believe it or not, fans, last year the Saints could have been 13-3. With about 8 plays, the Saints lost 6 games by a touchdown or less, with the exception of the Arizona game in which they were in that game. So this team, even as bad as the defense was the year before that, the Saints easily could have been 11-5. They lost about 5 close games. This team has lost so many close games. The Saints usually give you 2 stinkers a year, maybe 3. That's it. The other 13, they're going to be right there fighting you. So now it's going to be crucial that the starters on defense, if Von Bell is better, rookie or not, then he needs to start. Same thing. If Keenan Lewis is still banged up, slow, then we need to put in Damian Swan or PJ. I would still like to see them with the loss of Kyle Wilson. I would like to see them add a veteran into those cornerbacks. I don't know where they would find anybody at this late juncture, but I would love to see another veteran to replace Kyle Wilson. I don't think that's going to happen, so they're going to have to go with the young guys. So it is going to be very crucial that who is the best, that's who's out there on the field in terms of playing for the Saints, because in the crutch or the crutches of a game and in these close games, the Saints are beginning to lose these games that the first 5 years of Peyton's tenure they were winning. Lately, since that San Francisco game, the Saints are no longer winning the close games. They're losing too many close games that they should win. A turnover here, a turnover there, or a blown lead by the defense. And this team, we wouldn't even be having a lot of these conversations. Those 3 7-9 seasons easily could have been 10-6. Easily. So this team is not really, in terms of capabilities, a 7-9 team. What has made them a 7-9 team, I feel personally, is that Coach Payton did not start the right people. I think when he was trying to force Mark Ingram, it should have been Chris Ivory. I think that his decision to get rid of Malcolm Jenkins for Jairus Byrd was a bad decision. I think these are some of the things that have cost us. I think they released Lance Moore a year too early. He still could have been valuable in a wide receiving corps. So there's some of the decisions, Jimmy Graham, and Darren Sproles. There's no way on earth, if Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles was on his team last year, I guarantee you, Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles alone, the Saints would have won 10 games. Jimmy Graham and Darren Sproles, the Saints would have beat Arizona. They would have beaten Tampa Bay. They would have beaten Carolina one of those games. If not both of those games, they would have beaten Detroit. Very easily, if you had those 2 players still on their team. Because I watched the Saints in 2013, those first 5 games. In those first 5 games, Jimmy Graham alone carried the Saints through 3 of those first 5 victories when they started off 5-0 in 2013. So we've got to now he can't have favorites. He's got to put who are my best 22 players. It appears that Forbet is getting his act together in the special teams. I heard he has not missed a field goal in training camp. Kicked a 55-yarder on today in the win, with a slight win up there in West Virginia. So that's looking good. Now we need to get Marcus Murphy or this kid Lewis, or, if they're going to use Spillers, whoever, to get our return game. So everything has to tighten up because Coach Payton is under the fire, as I stated last week. Coach Payton is the fire. I'm not going to look at the players. If anything goes wrong with the Saints, I'm looking at the Saints coaching staff, because you're not going to be able to continue to blame we don't have the talent. You're not going to be able to continue to say, we didn't pick up the right free agents. You're not going to continue to be able to say that. At a certain point, if you can't gel with this talent you have here and stuff, then he has to look at his coaching staff, and he has to look at himself.
Good points. Let's listen to a little bit of Coach Payton and his press conference with the media on today, as well as we have Daniel Ellerby and we have Andrus Peat. Hold on.
A couple of roster announcements. Keenan Lewis returned to practice, so he's passed his physical and he's off PUP. We signed these three players: Jamal Golden, safety; number 42, Matt Shaughnessy, defensive end; number 70, and then Jordan Walsh, an offensive guard. He too is in number 70, but in the white jersey. We waived Lawrence Virgil, and then these two players were waived injured: Alden Darby and Kyle Prater. So our numbers are still right at 90. Any questions?
What would you say Keenan is? Competitive period as you did in a practice there with that kind of spirit. What does that do for you and your coaching staff?
Well, we're trying to look. Part of the game is that competitive, and when you're on the field third down, which we were for that period, it's just trying to win the snap, win the down. We add on some conditioning maybe for the group that doesn't. And I thought the focus was good. We'll look at the film. I think there were some parts of the practice that were a little sloppier than others, but I think it's a good thing. You create those periods and try to make it as game-like as possible.
Where would you say Keenan is right now?
He's got his first practice in. It'd be too early to say. I haven't even seen the film, so. As far as his health, he feels healthy and is really getting out there and working the mechanics, the technique. It's been a while since he's actually been on the field, so but he knows what's going on, and it's now just getting the pivots, the turns, his pedal, the technique, all the nuances of getting back on the field.
How much a guy that you'll manage reps with?
We'll be smart. Anytime we bring a player from who's coming off of an injury, we've got to be smart about how many reps they get in a course of practice and begin to expand that as the weeks go on.
Most important thing for a running back, but looking at Daniel Lasco, how important was his all-around work at the combine for you guys?
I think for him it was important because he had an injury his final year, so there was a limited amount of tape to evaluate. He had real good combine numbers. I think the thing for us that sparked our interest, aside from his measurables, was watching him play kickoff. He was down the field a couple times first, making the tackle, and so if you can have a vision for a running back like that, who's on the roster, who's going to play in the kicking game and give you some snaps, that versatility is real important.
I feel a lot better just having 1 year of experience and just working on getting better, each play, each practice.
How difficult is it, or different is it, working at so many different spots?
I don't think it's difficult. I like getting as many reps as I can and just being versatile and being able to help in any way I can.
Hayden was saying that he liked the shape that you came in this year. What did you do in the offseason? What did you try to improve specifically?
Just conditioning was a big thing, and that's pretty much it.
How'd you do that?
I just had more time to work out because I wasn't going through the draft process.
Did you shed any weight, or did you kind of stay the same?
I'm about the same weight. I was just tried to get a little leaner and just maintain my weight.
What was that reported weight this year?
I'm about 320.
320?
Yeah. Good. Let's
Okay, that was Andrus Peat and Sean Payton, guys. I'll let you guys hear a little bit with Ellerby a little bit later, as well as Mark Ingram. Any comments, any thoughts about what you heard from Sean Payton, Professor?
I think that he's Coach Payton is like Belichick. They give you what they want to give you. Most of the press conferences I've heard, I've not listened to all of them in depth because a lot of times when he's on, I have the radio on and I'm working, so I'm not able to focus. But the times I have been able to listen to him, In terms of everything, he's been very positive about most of the players that the media